Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. If you've joined us before, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. Every month, we take a moment to stop and talk about all things renovation and design with our favorite designer, Kate Troyer. Thanks for joining us again, Kate.
Thanks
In
for
the
having
past,
me as always.
of course. In the past, we've talked about categories like top 5 tips to get the most out of your renovation budget. We've talked about investment property renovations. We've talked about outdoor renovations, home office tips. So, if you'd love to binge or watch some of the episodes you might have missed, you'll be able to see them in the comments and a link below. We'll have a link to our full webinar series that you can binge at your own time. Um, Today, we're going to talk all about kitchens, which is a topic near and dear to my heart. I love kitchen remodels. A recent Zillow poll showed that 58% of home buyers are making their decision around what the kitchen looks like. They want to see that that kitchen looks as they expected it to look. And so, if you are a home buyer, if you're out there looking for a house, I know right now there's a limited inventory. Know that renovation financing is a great option if you're looking for that perfect kitchen, because chances are you're not going to find the kitchen exactly the way you want it. I mean, there are so many great design shows right now that show you all the different options that are out there. You're not going to find the kitchen that's exactly the way you want it out there. But if you do find a great kitchen, so did 50 other people. And now you're stuck in a bidding war, right? For a property that's not even done the way you want it to be done. So here's where renovation financing can really help. Renovation financing gives you the money to purchase and renovate all in one. So whether it's a custom kitchen remodel, a master suite addition, a bathroom remodel, there are a ton of options to what you can do with renovation financing, and it's still at a really low down payment. 3.5% on FHA, 3% as low as 3% on conventional. So this is a great option if you're out there looking right now and you can't find exactly what you want. Renovation financing can help you turn the house you found into the home you want it to be. So let's talk about return on investment for kitchen remodels, because I thought this was really interesting too. If you're doing a minor kitchen remodel, that's going to have an 81% return on investment. And we're going to talk about some budget friendly tips in a minute. If you're doing a major remodel and you're going all high end, that's going to be a little bit lower return on investment. That's more like 54%. So, with that being said, let's get into our categories. Let's see what we have today. Um, and of course, our contact info. So, first up is heart of the home. So, there's a reason that 58% of people care what the kitchen looks like. It's really important. It's important to how we live our lives. It's important to how your family goes about their day every day. And so the kitchen is important. And we have a first transformation to show you. So today we're going to show you some before and afters. And then we're going to get some tips from Kate on how to really make that space the heart of the home. So let's take a look at our before. Okay, so this was a really interesting one because it's a really big room, but the kitchen was kind of done as an afterthought. So you can see that they created like a half wall and had just a string of a couple kitchen cabinets for a sink, a fridge, and a stove. Functional, but really limited and not the best use of the space. Um, you can see that once that was taken down, the room is fairly large. So let's take a look at our after picture. And so ultimately, this was actually in one of our apartments, and we were able to move a giant island into the middle of the room and move that wall of cabinets to the back of the wall. And so this really just kind of opened up the space as a whole and made it a little more functional. I'd love to hear from you, Kate, though, when you're looking at a client's kitchen or designing your own kitchen and you're thinking about that being the heart of the home, what are some things that our viewers should keep in mind?
So I think that if you are able to have some sort of seating in your kitchen, I think that is would be like my number one thing, right? So even if you don't have, I mean, what you were able to do here and add seating for 4, even 5, if you know, had someone over at the desk, or could add, you know, someone on the end there. Um, Even in a small space, I know in my personal kitchen, like we have a galley kitchen. And so there's not, you know, and it's kind of cabinets both ways. So something that I did was put like a big kind of like a larger armchair in there so that at least one person could kind of hang out in there, you know, because maybe we don't have people over all the time. But at least, you know, if your significant other and you are home, like, and one of you is cooking, it's great for the other person to just be able to hang out in there with you. So whatever you can do to add some sort of seating, and maybe it's even, you know, maybe you don't have seating set up all of the time, but you have a little nook that someone could sit in. So maybe it's, you know, you make a chair easily accessible if you know you're having people over, or your significant other likes to hang out with you while you cook. So I think seating would be my number one for it being the heart of the home. It just tends to naturally be the place that everyone wants to gather. And that's because back in the past, you know, your fire source was kind of what everything revolved around. So that was cooking, it was hanging out, it was staying warm. That's where people kind of went to gather. And now in modern times, that's kind of our modern version of that, is our kitchen, where we're preparing food. And it's just kind of like naturally, that's where we gravitate towards.
I think that's great. And the other thing I think that you were talking about the other day too was, you know, but in kind of the same vein as that seating, it's how does it connect with the next room?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that that's always been important for us. I think, what do we have for our next slide? Does it go into budget friendly after this? Budget friendly. Okay. So we'll talk
Okay.
about budget friendly. But I think that, you know, making your kitchen the heart of the home, like you said, is so important. I didn't even think about how back in the day it would have been literally the gathering place for so many reasons. And we still
Mm-hmm.
use it that way today as well.
Yeah, it's really
So,
crazy how that
yeah.
works. But it was just like you said, with opening up, you know, like being able to be open to other rooms so that maybe someone can be in the room next to you and still feel like they can be a part of the conversation or what's happening there.
And that's one of the things that I'm sure lots of our listeners deal with when they're out looking at homes or even in their own homes that they're living in now, because a lot of the homes out there, I think it's something like 60% of the homes nationally are 40 years or older. And
Mm-hmm.
homes were lived in a lot differently. The rooms were very compartmentalized. And so, you know, something you can do with a renovation loan is open up a wall, or you know, maybe it's that you're going to do a banquette and you're going to have a window between two rooms, something that just allows you to connect between those two rooms. So if you're out there looking at homes right now, or you're a realtor out there showing homes right now, know that that's an option as well that you have. You're not stuck with that layout. You're not stuck with being closed in these smaller homes. You can open up the floor plan to make it what you need it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's take a look at some budget friendly ideas. And I love budget friendly because, as we know, because we just talked about it, in a budget friendly renovation, you have an 81% return on investment. So those little changes and those little things that you do to the property are going to come back to you. You're going to get that equity back in the property. So let's take a look at our first transformation here in budget friendly, and then let's get some tips from Kate. So it's a small kitchen. So again, in a lot of these older homes, especially the multifamilies, they weren't multifamilies. They were big single family homes, and some of them didn't even have a kitchen upstairs anyway. They were in the basement. So a lot of these homes have been chopped up and, a kitchen added here in a hallway, or there in what used to be a closet. And so, you can see that this is a smaller space. This kitchen was probably done in the 80s at some point. And you can see it just looks a little tired. Let's take a look at the after. So, some of the budget friendly tips from this one were using what you have. So one of the walls could be exposed with brick. That saves you on some tiling. That saves you some space. So now you don't have those 4 inches of lath and plaster. You've got a little bit of extra space to work with. And it's a unique feature in the house. So that's always a great budget friendly tip. And then these are all IKEA cabinets. I love IKEA cabinets. When we use them, we make sure that we also don't use everything else from IKEA. So if we use the IKEA cabinets, we're not going to use the IKEA hardware, their tiles, or their countertops. We're going to source those someplace else so that it doesn't look like it just came out of the IKEA showroom. So those are some of the budget friendly tips we had from this renovation before and after. But Kate, I'd love to hear your budget friendly tips because I know you have some great ones for kitchens.
Yeah, so of course, the first one, and it's something we always talk about, right, is paint. You can paint
Yep.
your cabinets. You don't have to get all new cabinets. And that's always a huge one. The second one I always think about, like you mentioned, going a little bit nicer with the hardware. I will also say that Amazon has so many options for hardware anymore that like it's something you can easily get for a great price. And the thing that I love most about hardware is it's where you can be a little trendy in your kitchen. And if in 3 to 5 years, that's just kind of out and you're over it, replace it. It's the easiest and least expensive thing that you can kind of replace in your kitchen. And it's something that you can use to kind of keep your kitchen feeling updated on a very like budget friendly scale. So I love hardware. Something else that we thought of when we were talking about this that I really loved was the idea of using a peel and stick wallpaper as kind of your tile. Now, I would suggest this as more of a temporary solution. Maybe you're not able to fully renovate when you move in, or maybe you're in a rental and you don't really have any backsplash, or your backsplash is really ugly. You could kind of, cover that up a little bit with something that's kind of fun and vibrant and just really change the space. Again, this I would assume would be like a temporary fix, but it's something you could do in the meantime of doing like a larger kitchen renovation that could really update and change the space. The other thing I wanted to talk about are your countertops. So mentioning IKEA again, they have an amazing selection of butcher block countertops. And we're definitely seeing more natural wood tones coming into play with design right now and more organic materials. So a butcher block would be something that's great and it's very inexpensive compared to stone. And what you could do if you went with the bamboo countertops, maybe if you have an island that you're able to do in the middle, getting a remnant piece of stone, right? So you've got some stone in there, but you went and you did something that's a remnant, so you saved a lot of money, but that's also giving your kitchen a very custom look, and you didn't have to spend a ton of money to do it. And then I think my last thing would probably be looking at laminate flooring. Now, if the rest of your house is wood or a different wood laminate, please don't put another wood laminate in your kitchen. It's my biggest pet peeve to see two woods against each other, but it's something that I see often. And it's because our LVP selection is mainly wood looking LVP, but companies are now starting to make a lot more options when it comes to more like porcelain tile, slate tile, even pattern tile that's like a nice LVP, and you don't have to just like settle for like, the stick downs. So I think that's something, and maybe again, might be an option if you want to add a little pizzazz and fun to your kitchen, going with like a cool pattern tile on the floor and then keeping everything else a little bit more neutral or something like that.
I love that. And those are also ideas, like you said, that make it seem and look more custom. So
Mhm.
anytime we can be budget friendly and look custom, it's always good. Um, what about, Kate? I don't know if we talked about this the other day, but what about kitchen lighting solutions? Do you have any
Oh.
tips on that for a budget?
So Amazon's a really great place to look. I know locally we have Cleveland Lighting, and they have a really nice range where you can, obviously go very designer, and then they have some other options. I like to look at random places too, like World Market has some great options sometimes. Trying to think of where else. Sometimes Target too will have some different options, but you can find so many things on Amazon now. And also one thing that's really cool is you can get, like the LED kind of like strip lights that are battery or like USB rechargeable, and use those under your cabinets for under cabinet lighting, which just takes a kitchen to a whole other level when you have like lighting under your cabinets. And even your, by your kickboard on the lower ones is a great way. And now you don't have to necessarily pay to have an electrician come to move wires to get all that installed. You can just get on Amazon or, Google LED strip lights that are, battery rechargeable, and it just huge difference.
I love that. Yeah, because that is something that used to be a huge expense. Like if you 20 years ago, if you saw somebody had all under cabinet lighting, you'd be like, oh my gosh, this was an expensive kitchen remodel. So I'm glad that there are more affordable options now. So budget friendly, just to recap, this is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. If you're doing a budget friendly reno, whether it's because you're doing less expensive cabinets and you're splurging on some other areas, or you're taking the cabinets you already have and painting them and renovating the kitchen. If you're able to do the renovation on a budget, you are going to get more return on investment. That being said, with a renovation loan, we're going to lend against the future value of your house. So if you have a little equity already and you're looking for some more high-end finishes, you can absolutely do that in a renovation loan as well. Those loans are considered rate and term refinances. So we're not only lending against the future value of your house, but we're lending at a higher loan to value than we normally would. So on a refinance, we can go all the way up to 95% on a conventional, or 97.75% on an FHA. And on a purchase, of course, you can wrap it in and keep your down payment really low. So great option either way. If the kitchen is something that's important to you, you can get it done using your renovation loan and see what that return on your investment is. I think we have one other transformation too. I think it's the kitchen I'm sitting in right now, actually. Let's take a look. So in the before, you can see that it was closed off. It was completely closed off to the other rooms in the house. So it was a really tiny kitchen. You went through that tiny door, and it was literally cabinets flanking you on both sides. You were just like enough room for a person to fit in between them. And so in this renovation, we did open up that wall completely. We pushed out a little island that has a sink on it and a breakfast bar to add some seating. And so now that room is part of the dining room. So you can see the finished product where it's just really now part of the house, as opposed to like a little cramped space that somebody would go in. Those are also IKEA cabinets. Same thing. We did some remnants for countertops and some hardware that I believe we did find on Amazon, just to make it look a little bit more high end. All right, let's take a look. We've got another category. So our next category is Feng Shui tips. And this is my favorite part about your design, Kate. It was so many things that I never thought about before, but they make so much sense. So,
and it's like I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, and I think it's funny because don't you realize too that it's stuff that you're kind of aware of, but you just don't put much intention or thought behind it. So and then you're like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. That's what's so cool about it. Yeah. And so some feng shui tips for our kitchen. Absolute number one is going to be that it's organized and you keep it clean. And don't hate me for saying keep it clean. There is, a limit to kind of, the chaos of creating things and having people over. That's totally different. We don't leave our spaces like that, so that's like the biggest thing. And, that can even come into a renovation loan when you're thinking about, even if it's a small transformation, how can I set this space up so that it's serving the purposes that I need it to serve? Do you cook all the time? Do you not cook very often, but you have big parties? And, there's so many things, like how many things do you actually need in your kitchen, right? We all have the tendency to kind of over consume and have, and that doesn't stop in our kitchen with kitchen tools and appliances and all that kind of stuff. So my thing is like getting very intentional about what's in your kitchen so that everything that you actually use is organized, it's easily available to you, and it makes your life easier when you're in your space. When you're cooking, you're not stressed because you have everything that you need right there. So that's probably my biggest thing, is organization. Go through if you open your cabinets and stuff is falling on you, start going through your cabinets. And even if you just do one a week and just, see if there's anything that you can part with, it makes your life so much easier and just serves you so much better. Another one is if you have a space where when you're standing at the stove, your back is kind of to everything else, hanging a mirror above your stove is really great. And that's just so you can see behind you. We've talked about this before with when we talked about Feng Shui tips for your office. If you're sitting at a space where your back is to the door, hanging up some sort of mirror so that you can see behind you. It's kind of a natural human instinct for us when we don't know what's going on behind us to kind of be more tense and on edge. It's like our fight or flight, like, is danger going to occur, And so it just having that there so that you can see behind you just naturally puts you at ease. So that's a big one. Another big one is having your knives on the counter in a knife block. And I know you're like, ooh, why we have knife blocks, right? Yeah. Well, it's really kind of this symbol. It kind of promotes the symbolism of like you not feeling safe, or kind of like on guard, like, hey, I'm ready if anything's about to happen, like type of thing. And it can also be a safety hazard, right? So what I love to do, they have all these different sizes and these really great drawer knife organizers now. And I'm like obsessed, like mine, I was like, oh my God, this like changed my life. I that probably sounds a little silly, but it was really like, I loved it that much from having it on the counter. I feel like it's just easier and I like everything's laid out. I know exactly what's there. So yeah, having your knife block on the counter, that's a big one. If you can't, like, for example, in our last place, I only had like 3 drawers in the whole kitchen and they were very small. So I kind of like had to use my knife block. I tried putting it in cabinets and stuff, and it just made my life so much harder. So I put it back on the counter, but I think I set it beside like some nice like plant and kind of like to soften it so it wasn't like the thing that drew your attention on my counter, right? And it was kind of surrounded by like soft things. So if you're not able to do that, that's just a thought, just to kind of like soften that energy a little bit. And then my last one was using all of your stovetop burners. So if you're like me, which you probably are, you have like favorites, right? Or like 1 or 2 that you use all the time. Like those are like your burners. And symbolically, if we want to think about it this way, it's kind of symbolizes that you're not utilizing all the opportunities that are available to you. So even if you don't use them all the time, but like, just trying to get yourself in the habit of like switching up a burner one night a week, or I know it almost sounds silly, but it's like, they're there for us to use them. So if we're not using them, then we're not utilizing everything that's available to us. And it's also like better for your burners, right? For all of them to be used throughout time. So you don't have any that stop working or something like that. And you don't even know because you've never used it.
I love that. I feel like we talk about organization all the time, and it's one of those feng shui things that, I never really thought about, but makes so much sense. It does just, you're less stressed if you know where everything is. And so if
Mhm.
you are doing new cabinets, that is something you can build into your renovation loan as well, is having the special insets and having the drawers and that have like the double drawers. So you've got one drawer on top that slides out with your knives, or another that's got, all of your spices in it, and the spice rack. I know one of the things that is my pet peeve in the kitchen, and that we always do in our renovation, is make sure that we have a cabinet that's a pull out for the trash.
Mhm.
Because with dogs and kids, I can't have the trash be out. So that's one of the things that reduces my stress level to have built in.
Well, I would say I would add trash can to my list of tips. I wasn't even thinking about it. I hate when I walk in a kitchen and I see a trash can. Like
Yeah.
I hate it. It's like where your focus goes. And so not being able to tuck that in a cabinet or a closet or something, I think is like, it's huge. It just completely changes the energy of the kitchen.
Hmm. Yep. I totally agree. So I love that. I love all those feng shui tips. Those are fantastic. And I think our last category is to talk about the new trends, or the upcoming trends in kitchen. And so I know we also talk a lot about what is trendy and where should we put the trends. I know that if something's like a permanent fixture, like we were saying earlier, it might not be something you want to try the newest trend on. You might want to put something more classical. So Kate, talk to us about kitchen trends. What is out? What is coming in? What should people be thinking about in their kitchen remodels?
So I feel like a lot of people might hate me for saying this, but what is out is all white kitchens and white and gray kitchens.
Yeah.
Kind of that more sterile, clean feeling. Um, and we're opting for more. And I really think this has a lot to do with the last 2 years and how we've lived our lives. We're really
For
wanting
sure.
to like bring the outdoors in. We're wanting this warmer, more organic feel. We're spending more time there. It feels more eclectic. It feels more cozy. It's more unique. So I think that's kind of overall some of the themes that we're seeing in design as a whole, but especially in the kitchen, because this is kind of where a lot of different materials kind of converge, right? So natural wood tones, just wood in general is coming back. It's very much back in style, especially lighter natural wood tones. Um, Also seeing a lot more granite choices over marble and quartz. Again, it's more unique, it's natural, it's an organic material. So we're seeing more of that. Um, Mixing hardware, like your fixtures, your hardware, your light fixtures, or I should say like faucets, light fixtures, hardware, seeing more like mixed metals. And that I'm seeing repeated throughout the home. And it's something that I do with one of the builders here in Cleveland that I work with. And at first they were like, oh, that's so weird. And then, and then you see it done and it looks really great. So maybe going with like a chrome faucet, because chrome is kind of, to me, always classic, right? A chrome faucet, and maybe you go with brass hardware, and your light fixtures, maybe they end up being a mix of chrome and brass or something of that nature. So seeing a lot more of that. And then with backsplashes and islands, seeing that stone or your countertop material carried up as a backsplash, and then also a lot of waterfall islands that have just been absolutely beautiful. If you have the budget to do a waterfall island and you have the right space where it can like be seen, it's absolutely gorgeous. So that's something we're seeing too. And then with backsplash as well, again, more like organic, almost handmade kind of materials. I would say we're seeing more of a square tile over a subway. and seeing a lot of things more, even if it's a subway, more stacked patterns over like the traditional brick, you know, that are kind of layered like this. You're seeing stuff that's more stacked. But again, just overall, so much more organic, more warm. I mean, these pictures, like, they're lived in. It kind of has that lived in feel because we're spending more time at home. I think these pictures are kind of great representations, you know, of like using the things, like having stuff out that you're using and kind of having a purpose, and that's really fitting your personal, your family's needs and your style and all of that.
I have a question for you, Kate. Are there any metals that shouldn't be mixed, or do you think it's just kind of free reign, or like should you only have two different metals and repeat them throughout? This whole concept is new to me. So, what else
Yeah,
do we need to know?
I would say for the most part, I stick to two and move them throughout the house, right?
Got it.
Not that you couldn't kind of throw a third one in there, you know, depending on what it was and where it was. There can be a little bit of an art to it, I think. But for example, let's say we're talking about a bathroom, what I'll typically do in a bathroom, let's say my hardware in my cabinets is brass, then I'm going to work up my faucet is chrome. So what I could do is now I have a light fixture and a mirror left. So sometimes I'll kind of do like chrome mirror, chrome faucet. They're touching each other and then they're bookended by a brass light fixture and brass cabinet pulls kind of thing. Or I'll do like everything in brass and then just a chrome faucet.
Hmm.
You know, so that's kind of, I guess if I use a little bit of a formula, that's kind of typically what I'll do
That makes
when I'm
sense.
mixing two things together. So it's like not everything. And anymore too, we don't buy things in sets really. Like I'm picking a mirror I like from here. I'm getting these sconces I really like from this place. I'm getting my faucet from here. So it's much different too. We're not really going in and buying packages of things anymore. It's a little bit more free. Like you could go with an all glass mirror maybe if you wanted to, or throw in a wood one or something random that you found, you know. So but that's kind of a general formula of how I mix stuff, I guess.
And then my last question for you is, what about the open shelving? Because I know that that was so in trend for so long. Is that still in trend? Because that's kind of a budget friendly item too.
I think it definitely is. I'm not sure if open shelving is ever something that will go away. I think there's definitely a place for it. I think that you could overdo it, right? But I think there's definitely a place for it, especially where you don't have enough room to put upper cabinets, but it still provides storage. And I think it really depends on how you use your home. If you have the choice and let's say you're just not naturally a very organized person, I would say open shelving's probably not for you, right? Because it's going to get
Mhm.
messy and you're going to have stuff everywhere and that's going to not make you feel good. So why even set yourself up for that? You
Yep.
know, if you have the choice. But if you like to kind of display things and you have certain things that you use all the time and you want to save some space, you know, then an open shelving would be a really great concept. So I think, again, it just comes down to really getting in tune with how you want to use your home and how you want to use each space in your home is so important. And it's something that we don't necessarily think about. We kind of buy a house and then we conform to the house instead of having the house conform to the way we want to live. You know, we just kind of like accept it. There's so many little things we can do, you know, to just get in tune with how we want to live in our home and what it needs to do for us.
Yep. Great tips. And then if somebody did want to try something trendy, what do you think is the best place for them to do something trendy in the kitchen?
Mm, Honestly, I would say probably either backsplash or hardware, maybe both, because those are the two kind of easiest things. It could be paint color as well, but it
Yeah.
just depends on how much wall space you have in your kitchen. A lot of
Yeah.
a lot of times you won't have a ton, but you could do paint color as well, like on the wall, not necessarily the cabinets. Those would be my three easiest and least expensive things to change.
Yep. Makes sense. Well, I think that was our last category, if I'm correct. So once again, here's our contact info. I'm Victoria Dowling. Again, I head up the renovation sales team here at Cross Country Mortgage. Kate Troyer has been giving us all the tips about design and feng shui today. And we'd love to take some questions from you guys. So we'll be here to answer some questions for the next 10 or 15 minutes.
All right, thank you so much, ladies. We actually have a couple questions coming in. The first, I believe, is for you, Victoria.
Cool.
If a borrower already has a great rate on the first, can you do a Reno HELOC or a second?
A HELOC or a second. So we don't have a renovation HELOC or a second. The renovation products that we have, the suite of products, are all 30-year fixed mortgages. So we would be paying off that first mortgage and giving them one new mortgage to refinance and renovate all in one. And it would be at today's rates. One thing I always like to say though is houses are forever, rates are temporary. If this is going to get you that master suite addition that you need and that kitchen remodel, or help you make your house your more functional home. One of the great things about doing a renovation refinance right now, regardless of rates, is that house prices are so high. So you can really take advantage of that future equity in your property and what the market's doing right now to get done what you want to get done to your house and then refinance down the line.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, next is, I have a 1895 Colonial Revival home. How might I update a traditional style kitchen without losing the historic feel?
Kate, do you have any tips on historic-ish kitchen remodels?
Yeah. So one, I would encourage you to go to the website or to YouTube and watch, was it the last one we did or the
Oh,
one
yeah.
before that, that was all about renovating historic homes? But I would say just making sure that, if you have a very modern style, maybe personally, being traditional with like cabinetry, maybe your flooring, even backsplash, I would say, like keeping kind of the foundation of your kitchen more of that traditional style, so it feels like it fits with the rest of your home. But if you do tend towards more of a contemporary feel, you could go with countertops that are very clean line looking. You could also go with some more modern light fixtures, kind of popping those in. If you're keeping cabinets and maybe you paint them more of a fun, vibrant color, but they still have like the more traditional style to them. So there's lots of different things you can do. I would just say make sure that you kind of do a mix and match of the old and the new, right? Like kind of have like a balance of both in some sort of, in the different elements that you're putting into the space.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Next question is some best colors for a bathroom.
So I like clean looking in a bathroom. However, I think it depends upon your personality. What colors do you like? I have one bathroom that's all white and very clean. But my powder room is a super like dark green turquoise color. And so it's very dark and moody. So I think that kind of depends on the vibe that you want to have in your space, right? So getting clear about that. I love a good dark moody bathroom, but again, if you don't have a big light source and you get ready in your bathroom, maybe you want something that's more along a white, because it's going to, increase the light that you're getting and stuff. So again, I think it's it's not so much about like what my favorite color is. It's more like getting in touch with like what you like and what you're using the space for is what's most important.
Great, perfect. Thank you. Next question is, what are the most timeless yet current on-trend appliance finishes? Is stainless steel still the way to go?
I would say stainless steel is like the classic, right? It's something I don't see like stainless steel going out of style. And so I would be mindful of that when choosing your appliances. However, appliances that are colored or like black stainless and things like that, those could go out of style, especially if it's not, I think if you're working with a higher end budget and you don't mind replacing something, if you don't feel it's in style anymore, then you can get whatever you want. But I would say for the most part, stainless is going to be the most timeless thing. So if you're looking for longevity, I would always go stainless.
All right, thank you. Next up, what are the trendy paint colors? So maybe thinking more for maybe this year or what's coming.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of, or again, like we're away from gray and we're seeing more taupey colors. We're seeing, kind of more rusty, earthy colors. Green is big, all the way from like an olive green to kind of even like a darker, almost evergreen color. So we're seeing a lot of green. Again, still on point with what we talked about earlier, with things kind of trending toward a more organic, warm, cozy, lived-in feel. We're seeing the same thing with those paint colors. So very earthy tones, warmer whites, that sort of thing.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm loving deep green kitchens myself.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on purchasing a kitchen appliance suite from one manufacturer as opposed to having different kitchen appliances from different manufacturers?
Does that make any difference from a design perspective, Kate?
I don't really think so. I mean, other than like your range, maybe if you're going with a high, like you cook a lot and like that range is something that's really important to you, then I would say, just going ahead and getting something different. But I'll let you kind of answer this one.
I know a ton of the appliance manufacturers tend to have package deals like that around the holidays, like 4th of July. And then again in the fall is the best time to purchase appliances because they're getting ready for their new models for the following year. But yeah, I haven't seen any downside to that. And usually, especially if you're buying it at one of the holidays, you're going to get a really good deal on it. And it's going to usually save you anywhere from 10 to 30% of what the cost would normally be. So if you can do that and you like the way the appliances look and you're happy with that, then that's always a good way to go. And that again is something that you could finance into a renovation loan as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That's actually our last question for the session.
Thank you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Kate or I. And if you have a topic that you'd love us to cover, we'd love for you to let us know. So we look forward to seeing you guys next month on our next webinar. Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys. See you later.